Good morning. Welcome to Modern Healthcare's The Checkup, a series of one-on-one interviews with newsmakers in healthcare. Today, we're here with Andy Danielsen, chair of Mayo Clinic Ventures. Andy, thanks so much for joining the show.
Having me.
So you've been at Mayo for a good amount of time. Just kind of paint me a picture of how you got involved in this space. Mayo Ventures works with new startups, helping get companies involved here. Just paint me a picture of how you got involved in this space and how it's changed since you've been here.
Well, I came to Mayo originally as a research scientist and worked in the research laboratories for many years. I did transition over to our Mayo Clinic Ventures group, which deals with, as you mentioned, startup investment, innovation, commercializing new discoveries out of Mayo Clinic, but also investing in new discoveries arising outside of Mayo, those technologies that we can develop, validate, incorporate into our own clinical practice at Mayo. In terms of how I've seen things change, and it's I think the point of the meeting today. A lot of change, obviously, related to digital health, artificial intelligence, the rise in the utilization of data, or at least I would say a rise in the awareness of how much medical and clinical data is utilized in the development of products and services. It's a little bit always been that way, but certainly and rightly a lot more focus on how our data are used and used appropriately to develop things like artificial intelligence that make disease diagnoses and things like that our future in digital health.
So talk to me about, like you're a, big provider. How did providers get involved in this space? Like, we've seen a lot of like VC firms and big tech try and take this on, but providers getting involved, not necessarily a new phenomenon, but one that I think is beginning to take a big stock and a big hold in the industry.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You've seen a lot more health systems develop venture investment funds, do product development, enter the digital space. Absolutely. In terms of at least Mayo's thinking in that regard, it's participating in the future of medicine. So Mayo is, as you probably know, long history of innovation and being at the front end of medicine. The first medical record invented at Mayo Clinic, use of microscopy in diagnosing disease, Mayo Clinic. And I would imagine that at the time, those things were maybe questioned, right? This is how we deliver healthcare. And someone says, well, maybe we should write down, the background of the patient and what we've done and look at that and refer to it the next time the patient comes. And I would imagine maybe back in those days, people would say, oh, well, why are we doing this? This isn't how we've always done things. And I think the analogy is, right, hospital systems, they do their work, they care for their patients. But I do think it's definitely Mayo's place to also be thinking about, well, how might we do our work 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that is good for our patients and good for Mayo Clinic as it runs its business of healthcare. And clearly, we've made the decision, and a lot of other groups have too, that future is a lot of what we're doing right here, an interview on Zoom, digital, telehealth, remote diagnostics. We believe that, like others, that's a very significant part of the future of healthcare. And we want to be part of creating that future because we believe we bring that patient-centric mindset to the equation.
I guess what makes Mayo different from other providers operating in this space? What do you have to leverage that maybe other folks don't?
I think the other healthcare systems are good systems as well. I think at Mayo, we feel like we have a large amount of data. We have a large practice, multi-state. We have facilities in Arizona and Florida and Minnesota. And then, of course, what we're famous for is that integrated model of care where patients come to Mayo Clinic and they're seen by a variety of clinicians, nephrologists, cardiologists, and neurologists, all coordinating together to care for that patient, which certainly means the patient is efficiently cared for. But then the topic at hand, we also have that collective holistic data set all at Mayo Clinic. So when you look at our electronic medical records, it will be very comprehensive in that we are seeing patients across specialties and all of that data is collated, aggregated in one location. So I would answer that we're a large practice and we are an integrated, holistic practice. So the data we're able to generate and then utilize for future advancements in healthcare is robust.
What's your message to other providers who are either in the space operating currently or are trying to sort of figure out how this works in their organization? What's your message to them?
Hmm. To have patience. So developing the future of medicine, it's exciting, and we all want to change the world, and we all see the problems, and we want to fix them today. And it just unfortunately isn't that easy as we think through developing products, validating that they work, securing regulatory approval, and then implementing them and supporting them. At least what I've come to learn doing this, it takes a somewhat frustratingly long time to get to the point that you wish to get to. So I would say patience in the entire process. If folks are new to getting into this, I would say also patience with developing the skill sets and abilities to even do this work, hiring the right folks who can do the work, carving out some discretionary or allocation of investment dollars, building that network of outside partners, both other investors, entrepreneurs, companies who can help you develop these products and create that future. So I think I'd summarize that with have a goal in mind, be impatient with results, but have patience with building to those results. So it'll take time to build your team if you're new to this. Take time to build that network. And if you aren't new to this and you're doing the work, probably don't have to tell those folks, but it takes a fair amount of patience and persistence to get from, hey, here's a problem I really want to solve, to solving that problem.
Let's talk about those problems. What areas do you think are most ripe for innovation, specifically coming from provider-led ventures?
Yeah, there's a lot, as you know. There's the cost. I think all of us are aware of the cost issue we have in the United States with healthcare. And what I would say there is part of these innovations, especially digital and data and analytics, why they're so exciting is that if you look at other industries, the electronics industry being the primary example, in our cell phones and our smartphones, when we've applied analytics and data and technology, we've seen a big increase in functionality and consumer performance, and we've seen a big decrease in cost. And I know for Mayo, we are looking at digital health and all of those things, analytics and data utilization, as a means to not only do better for patients to diagnose and treat disease, but do that in a way that fundamentally drives down costs that we've seen in the electronics industry, for example. That'd be one. The second, and Mayo and Dr. John Halamka from our platform has taken a leadership role here, is to ensure that when we're doing things like artificial intelligence algorithm development, that we intentionally ensure that we're having a diversity and inclusiveness to that, where we're bringing in minority groups that typically haven't participated in clinical research or clinical data set creations. And what has resulted there is that treatments and therapies often we don't know if they'll work in certain segments, right? A bit of a dichotomy in care. And what we don't want to do, especially with the promise of artificial intelligence, is have biases or products that don't work across the segment of the population. So we've been very intentional and specific about recruiting minority patients and data sets into our data so that when we do develop those artificial intelligence algorithms, they're broad spectrum in terms of their ability to help patients. So I'd say those are two top of mind: cost and ensuring that the care that we create for the future is purpose built to be wide spectrum across our population.
Well, I know integrating AI and developing these algorithms are something a lot of health systems are and providers are interested in. But finding talent has got to be really difficult. In those spaces, as you're competing with big tech and so many others for that talent. Do you feel it's the same way, like in your spinoff companies? Is it challenging to find people or investments, worthwhile investments to make? and founders to work with, or do you feel like there's so many like people out there who are working in this space and it's harder and there's more solutions than there is money you have?
It's a great question. And I guess I would answer that with I think there's always not enough talent for what you want to do. I think when you look at why things are successful, almost always the overriding reason for success or not success is the people, which is nice, right? We haven't been supplanted by AI yet. So you can have all the capital you need, and you can have the best ideas and the best intellectual property and the best technology. But if you don't have the right people leading that company or that project effort, it won't succeed. Conversely, if you have the right people, often it doesn't matter, right? They'll find the money, they'll find the technology, or they'll create it, and they'll make success. So for me, and I think for many others in this business, the primary factor in success is people. And yeah, there's never enough talented people for all the things we want to do. So
Yeah.
yeah, hiring good folks remains a challenge. Finding the right folks to pair with our startups, always a challenge. You can find them. That's not to say you can't, but it's a primary factor. And I think it's always going to be a challenge. They're very, very talented people are always in short supply.
And a lot of, I think, from what I've heard from other, other funders and, VC folks is, there are a lot of folks who understand maybe the tech side of it, but don't understand healthcare, and maybe vice versa. Is that a challenge that you would echo as well? Like, is it hard to find people that sort of have both sides of experience and the necessarily knowledge to make these ventures successful?
Yeah, not only do I feel that way, but if you look at the evidence, anyone would come to that conclusion. Um, Amazon, Microsoft, Intel, Google, fantastic companies that have revolutionized industries and revolutionized this country, have all spent a lot of time and a lot of effort thinking about and entering healthcare in different ways and in different forms. I would think they would tell you not to the success that they would have liked. And that tells you exactly what you said, that product development, even high-tech product development, the things these companies do are just amazing. But healthcare is its own beast. And there's a lot of factors that go into it. It's very person to person, even when we try it to not make it so, it is. It's very people-driven. It's a big regulatory component to it. There's payers. There's just a lot of things about healthcare that are quite different from almost any other industry. And yeah, it's not so much, I think, that the people either at those tech companies or in healthcare don't or can't think about the other. It's more about deeply understanding the healthcare industry and the healthcare system. And trying to change it is not an easy thing to do because there are so many industries. There's payers and there's drug companies, device companies, the providers, and then there's the patients. It's just a very, very difficult space. So yeah, big tech companies, and we welcome that at Mayo. We're partnered with many of them coming in because again, we all want to do the same things. Let's apply tech to lower costs and improve care. But it is, as you've pointed out, a much more difficult thing than meets the eye.
I guess just specifically, which companies in your portfolio are you working on? Just kind of, shed some light and share what you can, with what the companies that you're working with currently are
Yeah,
trying to
it's
do.
always nice to give some shout outs to the folks we've partnered with. Medically Home would be one where we made a big push into how can we provide high acuity, meaning complex care in a patient's home that is as safe and maybe even better than what they can get in the hospital. Most of us have had to spend time in the hospital, not a fun place to be. Always waking up, always getting interrupted, foreign place, weird sounds, just not, we would all rather be in our beds at home. And by the end of our stay, we're all begging to be in our beds at home. And so how do we move care when we can to the patient's home? It will be lower cost, we would bet, and it will be as good as what the care they can get in the hospital. So Medically Home is a company that we've partnered with and is implemented. We are now doing this live with Medically Home, who provide that remote diagnosis or diagnostics and care so we can move patients out of the hospital into the home. That's one. The other is Inference. They are a data analytics company. They've worked with us to take all 6 million of our longitudinal electronic medical records and independently certifiably de-identify those records, aggregate them, put them on our Google Cloud environment that is Mayo's, and allow that data to be accessed by our researchers to do good things, make new discoveries, advance healthcare, but also open that data up in a very controlled way to good groups, good external groups who are wanting to develop products and services. The data never leaves Mayo's cloud, so it's locked down. It is certifiably de-identified, and we monitor what the companies are doing. But we feel like this is how all of us individually can give back, right? Our data is there, it's de-identified, so no harm to the patient. And then we open it up to the world, because as many smart people as we have here at Mayo, right, we still have a small proportion of smart people. So we've opened that up through Inference to other companies to do product development. And then the last one I'd mention is a company called Anumana. They're doing remote diagnostics, and it's just amazing when you watch this happen. They're pulling ECGs, ECG waveforms from your heart. They can come from a body-worn device, or they can come from a smartwatch, say an Apple Watch or what have you. And those ECGs have a waveform, and very subtle changes in that waveform that humans can't interpret, but artificial intelligence can often pick up, and we've shown can pick up asymptomatic disease, not only associated with your heart, but also your lungs, and we believe even things like your GI tract. So far, we've got 3 algorithms that are in front of the FDA. They're all cardiac related, but they're all asymptomatic. So people are walking around and they may be progressing towards, let's say, heart failure. Off your smartwatch in this ECG signal, you can be alerted, and you can go to the physician and be put on a therapy to prevent progression. Great for the patient, let's say to heart failure, great for the patient, but great for healthcare as a society, because heart failure patients are very expensive. So if we can intervene early, treat, prevent heart failure, society saves a lot of money. Obviously, the patient does really well. So we're quite excited about that. So Medically Home, getting your care at home. Inference, how do we make sure we first do well by patients, so de-identify the data, but then aggregate it and allow for artificial intelligence algorithm development, for example. And then Anumana, which has done that artificial intelligence algorithm development for cardiac conditions off of a smartwatch, which is, again, fantastic.
Well, and I think those 3, ventures and those 3 companies that you pointed out really drive home to the point of, hey, we're trying to find ways to, these companies are very much a strategic play for Mayo and for other providers. They're helping get people out faster, save costs, help aid in diagnoses. So I think it's a great point. Andy, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time for the Checkup in Modern Healthcare. I'm Brock Turner. Have a great day.